YouTube! Today is the battle of the beast. The iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the Galaxy S22 Ultra from Samsung. Now these two right here are no small feat. These are the top of the top offerings from both lines. Whether you like Apple or Samsung, these are the big dogs. So let's get into it. Design, sizing, and weight. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is a heavier 240 grams versus the 228 grams on the S22 Ultra. Now, right now I have accessories, so let's remove those and give you guys the true naked visual of both of these devices. Now, I typically don't do cases, but this case right here from Samsung for the S22 Ultra is absolute fire. I got it from Samsung. There'll probably be a link down in the description for you guys to check that out. Boom, in their true and natural form. We got this nice matte phantom black on the S22 Ultra versus the typical gold on the 14 Pro Max. Height between these two. If you're looking as far as height goes, it's literally 0.1 inch of a difference. All right, you guys, it's time to take a side-by-side look at these two massive beasts. We got the S22 Ultra versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max. As you can see, the S22 Ultra is a bigger device, and it's more sharper in its edges because of the squareness. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is more rounded. It's sharper in edges as far as the flat sides, which creates a different holding experience. So not much there. Now, when we get into width, it's about the same width. So the biggest difference between these on the design, size, and weight would be the curved and the non-curved edges. So we got the sharp, squared body versus the curved, rounded body on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. These are big phones. So depending on your hand size and the way you hold your phone and so forth, could determine the comfortability between the two for you. So it's all personal preference, but I definitely want to point that out. Both of these devices have a different holding experience. Some people may not like the sharper corner of the S22 Ultra into your palm, and the rounded corner of the iPhone into your palm might be ideal. You know, when you're holding big devices like that, you got to consider like how it affects your hands and things like that. But nevertheless, both of these are palmable and usable with one hand, depending upon your hand size and your strategy. You got to develop strategy with these bigger devices. So both of these have dual SIM. Both of these have IP68 dust and water resistance. Both of these have their own pay sources. Samsung Pay, S22 Ultra versus Apple Pay on the 14 Pro Max. Very standard features that we love on our devices. Let's talk about display. Let's just be typical standard about it. Both are very good displays. Both look absolutely amazing and absolutely stunning. Now let's get technical, you guys. All right, so when it comes to the S22 Ultra, we have a 6.8 inch dynamic AMOLED, 120 hertz of refresh rate goodness, and a whopping 1750 nits of peak brightness. Now when we come to the Apple display, we have a 6.7 inch Retina OLED, 120 hertz refresh rate with a peak brightness of 2000 nits. That is crazy and is noticeable, as I will show you guys outside in video. I'm not sure if it's gonna translate on camera, the difference in display brightness, but I'll tell you from the naked eye, the iPhone is definitely a lot more visible. And it's shocking because the S22 Ultra was the record-breaking nits for brightness. I think it was like 1750, and then Apple came out and hit them with the 2000 nit display. So when it comes to displays, as far as brightness in sun, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is gonna give you a better visual experience. All right, so I'm just gonna pull up a video, which is probably gonna be harder for you guys to see the video due to the brightness. I can see the iPhone is showing up on camera way more than the S22 Ultra. And that just kind of speaks to the volumes of the brightness. So as you saw, there is a difference between the 2000 nits display versus the 1750. The iPhone just works better out in direct sunlight. Let's talk about resolution and pixel density. The Samsung display has a denser PPI at 500 PPI versus 460 PPI on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Here's how I measure and look at these displays. from a visual, color pop, vibrancy, saturation, the Samsung display, hands down. From a more accurate color accuracy, P3 gamut visual experience, the 14 Pro Max wins hands down. So, you know what I mean? From the typical everyday user who just wants the nicest looking display, a lot of people are gonna say Samsung for the W. For those creators or those, you know, color grading nerds, they're probably gonna lean more towards the 14 Pro Max. I don't know, you guys comment down below which display you guys think is better. Pulled up a similar video so you guys can kind of compare the visuals and you guys let me know which one you think looks better. This is no crazy like, you know, 4K HDR type video. This is just typical everyday user visuals that you're gonna watch. And honestly, I think it's tit for tat, either one. All right, let's talk always on display. Now, me personally, when it comes to this, I feel like Apple's always on display is way too bright, it's too much going on, and I believe that it's using way too much battery, unnecessary battery. Samsung does the always on display way better. All of these pixels are turned off and just the minimal amount of information is there. I wouldn't even mind if Apple kept this same like UI as far as the information because I like it, but just killed the pixels more. Like, let's turn those off. I get it. Apple has to do something different. They have to separate themselves. But at the end of the day, this always on display on Samsung is definitely better. It just is what it is. Now, as far as performance goes between these two, they're both top tier flagship performance. Now, it could vary whether on Samsung you have the Snapdragon or the Exynos version. Those are two different chips, two different experiences. The iOS has the consistent Apple chips, especially on the Pro version. We got the latest Apple chip this year, which has always been consistently ahead of the competition. So with that being said, I mean, there's too many factors that impact performance between the two, but the most consistent performance I can say will be on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, as far as sound goes from the speakers, I think this is where Apple takes the edge because this year's S22 Ultra had the most complaints from Samsung users as far as the speaker being inferior to previous Galaxy Note models. I know this is not technically the Note, but that's what people are going to compare it to because it's portraying the Note's spot. So at the end of the day, the audio speaker-wise between the two is going to be a better experience on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is what it is. All right, it's time for the most controversial topic, which is battery life. Battery life between these two devices. Honestly, let's be real. This discussion, as I say, is always 100,000% subjective to the user and the apps and things like that. But honestly, we can be real. This is more optimized. This has the better battery. The iPhone Pro Max versions, the 13 Pro Max was absolutely phenomenal, and the 14 Pro Max continues that legacy of best battery. Even though within the Samsung S22 Ultra, we have a technically larger battery, coming in at 5,000 milliamp hours versus the iPhone's 4,323 milliamp hour. But this is why I told you guys in my previous S22 Ultra videos that optimization is key and Samsung needs to work on their optimization. It's the one thing that Apple has over the competition because they control so much so they can optimize and pull as much performance and battery life out of their devices as possible. Now, the next topic that we're going to discuss and actually go outside for is cameras. It's the battle of the beasts. We got the iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the Galaxy S22 Ultra. The best of the best, especially when it comes to cameras in the flagship America's phone market. Which one's gonna be the beast, baby? We got the S22 over here looking like butter. Front-facing camera right now, you guys. Front-facing on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, butter. You know what I mean? Two of the top boss hogs. Who's winning? Comment down below in the comment section right now. Let me know. Front-facing cameras. Now let's get to those beautiful and even better rear-facing cameras. All right, you guys, these are the typical, everyday, everyone uses wide-angle lenses on the back of these smartphones. Now, there's a huge difference in megapixel count. Now, I know for sure on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, we got that 48 megapixel camera. And then when we come to this S22 Ultra, I think it's 108 megapixels if I'm not mistaken. It's something crazy. It's something big. It's something next level. These sensors are massive on both of these. So whether you're looking at the iPhone 14 Pro rear wide angle lens or the S22 Ultra's rear wide angle lens, let me know which one you think is the best. And now it's time for another favorite of mine, the ultra wide, the vlog lens. You know what I mean? The one you whip out in a pinch when you don't got your camera or you can't get your camera in there. Now we got the S22 Ultra's rear ultra wide versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max rear ultra wide. Y'all hit the comment section down below and let me know who's winning. We got direct sunlight on me, baby. This is the brightest condition, one of the best conditions that we can get. We'll be doing the Fold 4 out here against the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I wish that these cameras were on the Fold 4. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 14 Pro, this is the best camera offering from Apple. All right, so now we have that zoom lens. Which camera's looking better? I don't have much to shoot but the Yeezy slides, player. And we always do that. Plus, I'm a sneakerhead, so you know I gotta look at the sneaker. I will say this, man, the brightness of the iPhone 14 Pro Max display and this viewfinder right now is crushing the S22 Ultra. It's definitely a difference. Okay, so that was the camera section of the S22 Ultra versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Is gonna come down to preference. You guys comment down below and vote between the two, because I can't choose. Okay, now it's time to talk about the most important subject between the two in category, which is user experience. This is what matters most. What is your user experience going to be like, and which one may or may not have a better user experience? I'll put it to you like this. I love the Samsung user experience for the features, the customization, as you can see on my home screen, versus this one. I got a lot more control and a lot more choice, which I do appreciate a lot more. Also, you know, you're being given everything in the kitchen sink when you get a Samsung device. You got the S Pen, you got the best displays out there, arguably, great cameras, customization, features on top of features. The list goes on. The best always on display and beyond. So it's like, you know, on the Android platform, I understand why people love Samsung and use their devices. Now, they're not perfect, but they give a great user experience, and you can appreciate that. Now, when we get into the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the user experience is different, very different. It's more about the polished and optimized experience. It's more about performance. It's more about ease of use. It's more about the ecosystem and the unity within that. Even though some people say, oh, Samsung has its own ecosystem as well. But Apple's focus is more on their devices, I guess, just working as smoothly, as optimized, and as simple as possible. And they've achieved that, but there's also some pushback on that from the users on Apple. Some people would love to be able to have some of the customization that you get on the Android platform. Some people would love to have the always-on display that we get on the S22 Ultra. Some of us would probably like an S Pen on an iPhone and so forth. So it's like Apple makes the decisions. They decide what they want to focus on, what they believe is the best user experience in their opinion, and that's pretty much what they offer up. But generally speaking, it's a great user experience. It's well optimized, it's powerful, one of the best battery lives on the market, beautiful cameras, color accurate displays, and so on. So honestly, when it comes to user experience between the two, it's really going to come down to, what do you want? What do you value most? And which device is going to give you more of that for yourself? So user experience is 100,000% subjective to the user, you, the consumer. What do you want to experience in your smartphone, and what matters most? It's as simple as that. So I put these two head to head. It's not so much which one's better than the other. And I know that Samsung fans and Apple fans might go head to head. One side is more toxic than the other. Just keep it a buck. I'm not gonna say who, but you know who you are. But honestly, I don't think it's anything to get bent out of shape about. I just think we need to appreciate these devices for what they are, what they offer, and how far they've come. They've come a long way in the development of these smartphones, and I just appreciate every bit of it. So that was my iPhone 14 Pro Max versus Galaxy S22 Ultra comparison. I pretty much laid it out for you guys. I tried to keep it as simplistic as possible. I tried to keep it as simplistic as possible and just very easy to digest. These are both very great smartphones. And if you pair them with things like this Galaxy Watch 5 Pro or this Apple Watch Ultra, well, then you expand the ecosystem. There's just so many great things to enjoy about both of these platforms. So pick wisely and pick personally. Don't get influenced by the noise.